The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing. Connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by BraveHeart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, and healing. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops. And I'm live with Jill Reynolds. Joining me today is Dr. Jason Dean. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm grateful that you finally got on. We've met each other and known each other for, a couple months now, and finally got you into the show. So before we begin, Jason, one of my sponsors is an amazing company called Holy Hydrogen, and they've created this amazing machine that helps with hydrogen health and cell rejuvenation. So take a moment to listen to Holy Hydrogen. Make sure when you order this product, you put in the code Braveheart to receive $100 off. So stay tuned for just one moment.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the #1 tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage, where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
Well, welcome back to the show. And as you could see, that hydrogen is an amazing part of wholeness and health in your life. And speaking of health, Dr. Jason Dean knows so much about health and healing that we want to learn more about that. But before we jump into the health and healing aspect of Jason, will you take us first on a journey to little Jason growing up and what life was like for you as a little boy? Take us through grammar school, junior high, and on to how your life led you into what you're doing today.
That's a really good question. So this is fun. I haven't had this question in a long time, so we get to dive deep. So very early on, my parents divorced. I think I was around 2 or 3 years old, and I remember some of that. And so they went separate ways, and I ended up being back and forth. But the people who stand out the most were my grandparents. I was around them all the time. And they were basically like my second parents, and my grandmother and my grandfather were very, very close to me. My mom, actually, I lived with her most of the time. And it was interesting because she ended up going into alcoholism and did some drugs. She is she's born again and clean and sober today. So she's doing really well. So they went different paths, but come back around to 2023, I get along with both sides of my family. Everyone's doing well. But back in the day, that was actually really challenging. So I was with my mom most of the time, and I bounced around to lots of different, we moved to different places, not because they're good things. It was always bouncing around to different towns. And so pretty kind of tumultuous life. School was, I did well in school in general. I was like an A to C student, but I couldn't stand school. It's so funny because I've been through every level of school now up to doctor. And yet school I just didn't really, I kind of saw it for the indoctrination center it was. And so I didn't do well with it. Just because I was always seeking, I guess you could say, acceptance from other people, which is really interesting in this life because you find out, acceptance. You gotta like yourself first. I mean, at the end of the day.
Now, did you grow up with siblings, or were you an only child?
I was an only child. I do have some half sisters and a half brother, but I was an only child growing up. So I'm biologically an only child. So it was weird because, my mom back in the day, I mean, I used to stay home by myself I was very young because my mom had worked a couple different jobs, usually at a time, to try to survive. We were on welfare a couple different times. I recall that, which was, pretty embarrassing when you're in school and you're seen amongst your friends. But I was at home from the very beginning. So I've always been able to, even today, my wife's like, let's go do something. I'm like, yeah, I just want to stay home, because I grew up being home by myself most all the time. So I became very comfortable with being on my own, almost being a hermit sometimes. So it's very strange. I do really well by myself, quiet, but I also do really well on a stage because I speak professionally. So I have that really weird introvert, extrovert personality. So I can go up and do the stage stuff, and then I run back to my hotel and I get really quiet. I stay to myself. It's very funny, but going back to growing.
Let me ask a question. And when we get done, you and I'll have to talk because our life sounds so similar.
Sure.
So do you have that? Did you have the burden? Because I know it was part of my life. So I always I forgot to mention to the audience, one of the purposes of this show is to connect the dots of story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so people can see the similarities. So as you're speaking, one similarity that I had and wondered if you did was, being that you're a lockheed child and your family life was dysfunctional in the most, did you feel the burden of not feeling like you fit in or belonged, and so you stay hidden, almost out of embarrassment of kids coming over and finding out that you were different than maybe their life was?
Oh, 100%. And at that time when you're young, you think that everyone has a perfect life because you're looking around and they all have parents that are together. They have like a nice house. They have this, they have that. They aren't bouncing around from town to town. My mom would have different boyfriends. So for me, it was very weird. I mean, later on, you kind of laugh at it because you're like, really, everyone has a dysfunction. So even back then, they didn't have perfect lives, but you generate this perspective in life that everyone is doing perfect except for you, which is really kind of strange because it's obviously not true at all. And it's funny too, because my mom was, she was into alcohol. And now keep in mind, the funny part about that too is, even when her worst times, and I literally saw her in a hospital bed twice, where she had almost died from a major car accident after a night out doing stuff she wasn't supposed to be doing. She always did a great job at being a mom. So she lived two lives. Like she worked at a bar, she had a problem, etc. But then she would come home. I had to eat the food that was on the table. There was no entitlement world. There was no Jason gets to do whatever he wants to. It was probably actually harder on me. And the crazy part is she wasn't the only one in that family had problems. She came from a culture in her family, and they're very, very nice people, but lots of problems. A lot of people in alcohol, a lot of people in drugs. And so I had every excuse in the book to drink, to do drugs, to not grow up and do like what I should do, and it's funny because never done drugs in my life. I've been drunk in college maybe 2 or 3 times, and I didn't like it very much at all. So I don't drink today. I haven't drank in years. And so I call it, what you probably heard of, kind of like breaking the generational curse. I'm just totally the opposite of what I came from. And it's funny because I went into high school and still I got through school, but I didn't enjoy. I am not a good follower of authority because I'm a very type A personality. I run several businesses and I'm an entrepreneur. My wife's an entrepreneur. And so we have this very driven mindset. We travel a lot. We're going to different things. And so growing up in school, I didn't want to listen to a whole lot of people. I did listen to my mom. My mom also never had to spank me once. And I said, did you just not want to hit because it wasn't a thing? She goes, no. She goes, you actually just listened to me. She goes, and it was really strange because for as hard of a life she had, it was almost like I resonated that she was having a difficult time, and I didn't push limits that I didn't need to push kind of thing. And she goes, I would just give you one look of like, you're not going to do that kind of, if it was something was on the border. And she goes, you just listened. She goes, I don't want to say you're a perfect child. She goes, but you were really good. I didn't have to work hard. And she goes, I had my own stuff going on, and you made life like really easy. And so in high school, I was thinking about college, but I wasn't really thinking about college. I just wanted to get out of the system. I really wanted to get away from home because the last stepfather I had before I, left high school didn't really get along with. We clashed. We bucked heads. And again, perspective, I've learned since then that like he wasn't who I thought it was, and he's actually a really nice guy. He was having his own struggles. So I took the SAT test, which I always joke about this because I was finishing school. I had no desire to go to college. I actually wanted to go to Florida, which I live in now. I'm originally from New York. And I took the SAT. I scored horribly. Like at the time, like it was like a 900, but at the time, like that's like not like, that's kind of like you're not going anywhere in the world type of score.
If I would have taken the SAT, that's how I would have finished too.
Yeah, and they said, and they're like, "Do you want to take it again for a better chance to get into college?" And I'm like, "No, I never want to take that test again." And the funny part was, it was because I didn't want school. I pushed it as far away as I could because I really wanted freedom from the chaos of my life. That's really what I wanted. Because it's funny, I end up becoming a doctor, right? So I've gone all the way up through the levels. I've done it all. Like I'm doctor of chiropractic. I've done the whole medical part. I understand health, but it's just funny because, people tell me all the time today, like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. I'm like, yeah, I bombed all those tests. I didn't take that test. And I still got to where I wanted to get to because of just pure determination, willpower, and work. And so I went through college. And one of the big parts of my life, and I'm really glad you asked this because why am I here doing what I'm doing now? And I truly believe, obviously, everyone has purpose. Everyone has this supposed, I believe, almost destiny, right? And the fact that you're you're created, God has this plan for you. The question is, because you have free will too, do you get there? Or do you veer so far off that you don't get to what you're supposed to be? And I mean fulfilling a purpose, not as a parent, not as as a grandparent. Are you fulfilling the purpose to go out there and serve humanity the way you were intended to serve humanity? And in college,
and I want to pause there for a moment for those listening. And or were you one that veered off so far, like, and it sounds like your mom was one of these.
Yep.
That when God really took hold of you, you veered back onto the right path again, and all of a sudden you saw the purpose he had created. Because not all of us stayed on this path of veering this way and making it. We could, and I was one of them, veering way off to this side and coming back. Because this month I'm celebrating 41 years of recovery, Jason.
Oh, well done.
From crack cocaine and alcoholism. So
wow.
Yeah. So and I got clean at 28. So when we veer off, many of us do get to a place of coming back. Unfortunately, there's the few that don't. But continue on, because I just wanted to bring that up to those listening, that there is a hope that you will come back.
100%. Yeah, she veered so far off that she got like snagged right back in it. But that's amazing. Congratulations, because growing up with a mom who's been through that, I understand what willpower and what work and goes into that. So that's awesome. So when I came back home to New York to go to college, because I finally decided to go back to school, I went to community college, and I came back and I had the opportunity to live with my grandparents. And my grandparents were like my heart and soul at the time, right? And my grandmother, my grandfather. So I go to their house because they're maybe 15 minutes from my school where I was going to. So I was like, oh, I get to live with my grandparents and hang out and relax. And I was enjoying to get to live with them, because growing up, my life was kind of crazy and I didn't love home. They were almost my vacation from home. And I got to go there. I got to be a kid. I got to play. My cousins were around. I got to just be a kid again, right? So that's what I love. So I went back there in college this time, and I'm going there now. This is the weird part, and it's an interesting story. So I wake up one morning before school, and my grandmother wasn't up yet, which was very strange because she would be up. My grandfather would get up really early, go into town to the diner, talk with his friends, and he'd come back home. And I got up and she wasn't there. And I went to the bathroom to get ready. And I look over and I see in their room, and I see my grandmother still in bed, which was kind of strange. And I look over and I had that weird like feeling like something's wrong. I look over and like no one's moving. No, I mean, and every once in a while she slept in, but it just felt odd. So I called to her, got no answer. I finally walked towards her room, walked in, and I could just tell right away just by color of skin and everything else. And she was 68. She had already had heart attacks. She was not the healthiest person in the world. She had some demons and stuff that she'd never been able to conquer, but she was a lovely woman. And I realized like she was gone. And so I go into panic mode, make the phone call to 911, et cetera. And it was a flash of memory, but like I tried to bring her back. I knew I wasn't bringing her back. She died of, I think, her third or fourth heart attack. And my grandfather was a rock through the whole thing. And it was his soulmate, but he was a rock. Like you could tell he held it together for the family because we had a very close-knit family. This is my dad's side. And so I stayed with him the rest of the time because he's still going on doing his thing. But then he, I believe, died from a broken heart, not literally because of a heart attack, but he developed cancer within about, I'd say 6 months or so after that. And then it took him a couple of years, but I watched him all the way through that. And he actually waited to pass until after I graduated from college because I was the first kid that graduated from college. And I knew he waited for that. And so that was kind of the jumping off into life for me because at that point I kind of still felt like a kid.
And let's pause there for a moment because that's what you just shared. If you don't mind when I pause, because
no, go for it.
It's really important. Is you're probably much younger than me, obviously, but there used to be a show on TV years ago. It was Hal Linden, the movie star Hal Linden, and he would do a 60-second segment on health. And it's so funny because I just turned 69 and I still remember this from my 20s hearing this. And this is what he said, he said, is it true that old wives' tale about she died or he died of a broken heart? He goes, well, it is because, and you're a doctor, so let's talk about this and then let's go back to Grandpa and go on. He said, what happens is the pericardium protects that heart layer. And when you have emotional stress and trauma, that pericardium layer breaks down. And he said, so you truly can die of a broken heart. And my sister, Jason, on her 68th birthday 2 years ago, wasn't feeling well, went to the doctor and found out she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and had 12 weeks to live. My dad was 94. He still went to the gym 3 days a week and did a full circuit and 50 running laps. And as soon as it was 10 days before my sister died, which was September 28th of 2020, 10 days later, when we told my dad Gwen had passed and he was in and out of consciousness, he slipped away. And I do believe it was his pericardium that said, I want to go with my daughter. But continue on, because I think that pericardium is so important to learn about.
No, 100%. I'll even go deeper on that. So there's a great doctor out there. He's a medical doctor. I don't know if you heard the name, but Dr. Thomas Cowan. He talks, actually, there's a book called Cosmic Heart, and genius book. So you're right. But also on top of that,
and I have two very special.
The heart technically is not a pump. Now, does it pump blood up in this area? Yes, it does. But the heart does not pump blood to, say, your toes, because it's just not going to be able to get there, right? If you use that much pressure, it'd blow out your aorta. So really what happens is you have valves that push blood down there.
And I have
your heart is actually an endocrine organ, which is tied to your adrenals as well. And so the heart is what we call a nuclear reactor, meaning it has an energy torus field around it. So when something does happen that shocks your world, major stress, major loss, whatever it may be, that affects that energetic field. And so 100%, and probably that's where the pericardium comes in, is the fact that is part of that cycle. So yeah, absolutely 100%. When people have a big strike to them, that can absolutely throw them off. And yeah, so my grandparents, the interesting part about that is I remember saying when they passed, especially I knew that I wasn't able to, I didn't have the skill set, didn't have the knowledge to fix my grandmother. Obviously, she could have ate better. She smoked for her whole life. Like, she made a lot of lifestyle choices that were not great, right? But I didn't have the skill set. And I always wanted to, had helped her, had saved her. My grandfather, I didn't have the skill set, right, to do anything about that at the time because I wasn't studying that field. But interestingly enough, fast forward to 2023, some of the things I deal with today, cardiovascular disease, cancer, etc. So other than just waking up this world and from an American standpoint, I'm also helping people that have the same problem as they had back then. So it's really strange because at that time, I mean, I went into the business world first. I wasn't even close to healthcare. I wasn't even close to being a doctor. I was in business. I was in sales. I was in marketing. It wasn't until I met my wife, fast forward to like 2003, I moved to Florida, and I met my wife in 2005 when we started dating, and I found out she was a chiropractor. And I always loved chiropractic growing up. I knew about it. I mean, I wasn't going all the time, but I knew about it. And she connected me. She said that, yeah, I came to work for her office from a business standpoint. She's like, come help me at the office. And then next thing I know, I fall in love with the natural healthcare field. And she says to me, now keep in mind, here's the school part again. She says to me, you know, if you want to, you could just become a doctor. And I go, I'm not smart enough for that. And she goes, it's really not hard necessarily. She goes, first of all, you are smart. She goes, and it's not a brain intelligence thing. She goes, it's just data. It's information. Now, the hard part is, it's not because it's hard to take in. The hard part is, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, because when you go into medical school or chiropractic school, you're getting flooded all day long with information. And then you have so much time to study, and then you got to retain as much as you can and take the test. She goes, but it's really just more of a content or a quantity of content than it is like learning something, right? And
right.
so,
and it's the test taking that's cumbersome. It's the knowledge is fabulous.
Yes.
It's the stress of sitting down and going, oh my God, am I going to remember this and pass it? Do you not agree? It's that part.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason people ask all the time, they're like, because they see my handwriting and they'll go, why are doctors' handwriting so atrocious? And I go, I'll tell you the truth. I said, my wife and I'll tell you the truth. They go, my handwriting was actually decent before school. I go, but when you're sitting in front of the teacher and they're going as fast as possible, you're just trying to catch up. So you have to go into this like Sanskrit writing. You know what it is, but it's just your quick shorthand because you have to keep up. That's all it is. I go, and so over a period of time, it becomes horrible handwriting. You know what it says, but it's your kind of shorthand for what they're telling you.
You're going to crack up laughing. You know what I was thinking before you said that?
What's that?
I thought you were going to say, it's our bad handwriting, so when we take the test and we have to write out like an essay, they'll think we have the right answer, but they'll never know because they can't read our writing.
It usually takes, when someone starts new at our office, because it's my wife, myself, we have associate doctors, and when someone starts, they jokingly say it takes them a couple months to like try to understand. They'll come and they'll ask us questions like, what does this say? What does this say? And we'll tell them. And they're like, within about 3 months, they actually learned a new foreign language, which is our writing.
That's great.
So now
let's go back to your wife for a minute. Where did you
Yeah,
guys,
sure.
How did you meet? How did you guys meet?
We met. So here's this is so much. See, this is how interviews should be done. I talk about crazy politics all day long. This is actually a lot of fun. So I came to Florida, and I was in the business world still. And I think I was like 28 or something like that at the time. Like, I really didn't drink anymore. I don't smoke. I don't go out. Bars I'd done the bar thing in college, and it didn't do anything for me. And I worked in the sports world, so I had to go to bars with clients and stuff, but I was over it, right? And I'm like, where do you go meet somebody? And so I was professional at that point, so I didn't want to like go into anyway. And I also, to be honest with you, I did not feel like going through the work and job of dating. Like, I was like, this is so, and so I'm a technology guy now. I love technology, good and bad, unfortunately. And I was like, you know what? Let me try Match.com. I go, it can't be a legitimate thing, but let me just see what it looks like. So I was totally cheap too. So I go on and it's like you get the free 30 days, right? And keep in mind, I'm like a bachelor. I'm doing pretty well. I'm trying to be cheap when I don't have to be cheap. And I go on there, no joke, first girl I find. And I find out she's a doctor. I didn't know what kind of doctor yet, but she was really pretty. And I always said that I wanted to marry a Southern Italian girl, and she was from Miami, and she was Italian, and so blonde hair. And so I reached out to her, just like, like the little wave or whatever for the cheap people that don't pay their monthly thing or whatever. And so I reached out to her. I reached out to one other girl, nobody else. The other girl never. I don't think she ever emailed me back. And the girl at the time, she writes me back. We chatted for a couple weeks back and forth on email, and then she didn't answer back for a while, and I was like, what happened? And I emailed her. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't offend you, whatever. And she was actually starting her practice as being a doctor, so she was like, her time was crunched, and she goes, I'm so sorry, I just have been running around, etc. We met about a month later, and then let's see, I think we started January, and then November, around that time, as soon as we started dating, we never disconnected, and we just did our, let's see, 08 to 23. We just had our 15-year wedding anniversary on the 17th this past week.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Now, do you guys have children or no?
We have one little girl. She's 9 years old. She just tried out for her gymnastics team and made it, and so we were super excited because my wife and I are both athletes. My wife was a professional athlete, and so we were very competitive. And so, but the funny part is, I played football, golf. My wife played soccer and football, and my daughter's gymnastics. We know nothing about it. We've never been in this world before. We're totally outside of our comfort, but it's a blast because she's super awesome. She's born at home, chiropractic kid, no drugs, no anything, and super smart.
Well,
and now I'm dealing with a teenager, and she's only 9, but she acts like she's 30.
Well, I'm going to share something with you because my chiropractor that I was seeing in Chicago for years, his daughter got into gymnastics. So since this is a interview about you, but you're both in the medical, I have another piece of information medically that's phenomenal to let you know. So when your daughter gets to menstruation age, if she's still into gymnastics, make sure there's a way, and I don't know exactly how you do it today, to see if there's a way that she does not compete or overexert during her cycle. Because your menstruation cycle, and you can research this, and your wife will love this, when she hears this, has something to do with the breakdown of your joints and your bones when they're doing that much activity. So during that period of time, this chiropractor's daughter kept getting her injuries during her menstruation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would make sense. I could see the physiology behind that. My wife would, you're right, my wife will love to research that because she deals a lot, obviously, with women's health and children and stuff like that. So I will tell her that today on our drive.
This is a fun show. So you fell in love with this gorgeous blonde and beautiful doctor, and she gets you back into medical school. So you get into medical school. So let's pick up there. You're going to school. You're passing your test, obviously, even if it's a D-, who cares?
I was actually a 4.0 in chiropractic school.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing, Jason.
As much as I despise school growing up, I'll tell you this. One, you have to want to be where you're supposed to be. And two, I truly believe all kids are thrown into education too fast, like college. And remember, I was 30 when I did this. I was looking to have a career. I wanted to do well. I was in a field of study that I wanted to be in. I was interested, and I was literally 4.0 all the way up.
How old are you now? You look like you're only in your 30s now.
If I shaved right now, I still look like I'm 18. I am 45.
Wow. And I'm 69, and people can't believe
You don't look 69, though.
No.
And See what happens when you're on purpose?
Yes, it is. So 45. So now how long have you actually been practicing in medicine?
So I've been practicing myself 10 years. My wife's been practicing since '05. So she's like, what is it, 18, something like that, almost 20 years.
Wow. And do you guys
Yeah.
have a joint office together?
Yeah, we have a practice. We take care of people locally. We have ourselves. We have 3 or 4 associates now that do nutritional work. So we see people both locally, but we also do nutrition all over the globe. So it's a telehealth office too, which we've expanded greatly. We're one of the bigger offices for what we do. So we stay very busy. Plus, my wife has her own companies where she teaches other physicians to do stuff. I have my own. So we stay busy.
Wow. And now I know I've met you on the Reawaken America
Yep.
tour. Now, will you be attending the Miami and the Las Vegas events?
I will be at both of them. Yes, I will, ma'am.
So let's take a pause here just a moment. First and foremost, I want to show the audience your bio. So this is Dr. Jason Dean's bio. His website is BraveTV.com. That's how you'll find him. And then I want to pause here a moment and show you the Miami event we're talking about. So the Reawaken America has been traveling around the country, and their next stop is May 12th through 13th at the Trump National Doral in Miami. I have directions here how to register, because you have to go online, you have to click a couple buttons, and then text them, and they call you back. When they call you back, make sure you mention the promo code Braveheart and get 10% off. So this is the location in Miami. And then after Miami, they're going to Vegas, Las Vegas, on August 25th to 26th, and they'll be at the Craig Ranch Amphitheater. So those tickets are going extremely fast right now. Very, 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 very fast. So make sure that you get those tickets immediately and sign up. And don't forget, like I said, to mention the promo code Braveheart. So with that, I know that you've been to these events. Tell us a little bit about when they go to your website. I happened to go there myself today, and you have some amazing nutritional programs that you're offering. Can you talk about some of the nutritional programs that you offer for optimal wellness?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good call. So one of the things, and honestly, the 2 biggest things that I work in my office, we focus on getting toxins out of the system. Obviously, we have to build the body up with good organ support, and always food first. Obviously, you have to have clean food, clean water, exercise, prayer, spirituality, etc. Like, you need to be a healthy body, mind, and soul. But I like to focus on getting the toxins out. We've done a lot of work in this area. So the 2 big ones, or 3 big ones actually, I would say, are parasitic issues, because we deal with a lot of people with Lyme issues, co-infections of Lyme, heavy metal toxicities, lots of kids getting heavy metal toxicities from many, many different things out there. Yep, exactly. Teeth, etc. And mold. And I'm in Florida, so mold is everywhere, but Florida, humid, moist places as well. And so my wife and I, we've been in parasite world just because, one, we are in Florida, and I've been studying, I don't know if you know names like Hulda Clark, Royal Rife, etc. Some naturopathic names out there. These are people from the past. They've long since passed, but they were legends that I always tell people, I am not the one that created all this, necessarily started all this. I stand on the shoulders of legends. I like to give credit where credit is due for those amazing people. But when you go into it, and I'll tell you, one of the problems out there today is a lot of people don't talk about the parasitic issue. Yet I dare people, go right onto Google. You can do it. You can type in things like parasites in cancer, parasites in bowel issues, parasites in headaches, parasites in lungs, parasites in disease in general. You will be stunned at how many, not just like websites, I'm talking NIH studies, CDC studies. I mean, I have a book here that is a textbook from a medical school. This is the 4th edition, and it's about 1.5 inches thick. It's not small, and it's called Parasitic Diseases. They've known about this stuff for a very long time. And the reason I say this is because I would say, now Hulda Clark, who's a naturopath, she said the all diseases. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say that, because I could agree with her. However, I will tell you at least 90 to 95% of things that I've seen in practice, there's heavy metal involved, there could be mold involved, but there's always, always, always at some level of their healthcare. Parasites
story,
involved.
and
The
it
reason
has
why,
to be like
and I'll even use their own ammunition. If you go and you Google Merck manual, Merck the pharmaceutical company, Merck manual, viruses and parasites. Merck manual themselves actually say, first line, all viruses are parasites. That's their words, not mine, right? And so these parasites, keep in mind, they need a host. They need a weak host. Unfortunately, Americans, food system is messed up, water's messed up, etc. All the body becomes low from an immune system standpoint. It allows these parasites, which are all over the place now because we have kind of a fallen world, it allows the body to be overwhelmed by these things. And then keep in mind that you have tick bites, mosquito bites, spider bites. I mean, they're all carrying Lyme at this point. We have glyphosate in the ground, which is pesticides. So it really makes up this really nasty formula.
Well,
where,
I want to pause there for a minute because I just got back from Aruba, and my husband and I always stay at private homes because I can't stand staying anymore at resorts. And we drove over to a beautiful, gorgeous Marriott property to see about getting tickets to seats for the Super Bowl because we live in Missouri for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so my husband and I walked into the lobby and walked outside to go to the beach to where they were going to set up the big super screen for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
As the second, I mean, I'm talking, Jason, the second I walked outside onto their property, which was filled with greenery in the swimming pool, I started gasping for air. And I walked through the property for 5 minutes and back. And I looked at my husband. I says, we're not going to watch the Super Bowl here. Take me back to the Airbnb. I got to get a Benadryl in me. And I took a Benadryl and went to sleep for 3 hours. They had just sprayed for pesticides, and the Roundup was closing up my throat. That's how
bad stuff.
That's how quickly it affected my system, because I cannot even be in a room with fragrance, let alone a pesticide. I can't walk into a room.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are like that. My aunt, years ago, she up in Pennsylvania. I remember I grew up, and this is a really strange thing. I grew up. She was a super sweet lady, but I always remembered she was kind of grumpy. Like she was always just like a little off-putting. I knew she was very nice, right? Mm-hmm. But she had a grumpiness to her, and I wasn't around her all the time. But I just noticed, and I remember I would go to her house, and her two girls, super sweet girls, but I remember like she was mean. She just like had this grumpiness kind of to her, and I'm
that way.
She would have things on her door that would say, if you have any sense at all, anything on you, like you don't come in. She could not have stuff around her because her brain would literally just shut off. And I remember years later when I obviously became a doctor, she reached out to me and she's like, hey, is there anything you can do? And I go, let me check. We did some stuff on her. And I'm like, you have chemical toxicity in you. I go, and when you have that in you, you become super sensitive to any more that you smell because it's in the system. We did some detoxing on her, and I'll tell you, it's so funny because, again, I thought growing up she was just kind of the grumpy aunt, right? I didn't know any better. After she started pulling this stuff out of her body, she became the sweetest lady on the face of the planet, and she always was like that. But let me tell you, if you have stuff in you, I see this every day with patients too. People come in, we'll have people that come in who are so grumpy. And, obviously as healthcare workers, especially in natural health, we try to come from the heart. We want to love on somebody and okay, a little grumpy, so we'll back off. But we still we want to find out, is there something there? And you'll start helping somebody detox things out. And it'll be literally just weeks. They'll go from somebody who is just very off-putting to the point where okay, I'm going to do this, but I don't really want to do this, to they'll come in, sweetest people on the planet. You're you realize what happened. They're starting to get rid of this stuff that's been holding them down. And I'll tell you, it gives you kind of a picture when you're looking at America and how, people are angry, people don't feel good. When you start pulling this stuff out of them, you start seeing the other side of them of who they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be nice. They're supposed to be happy. This is really what toxicity does. So yeah, she was She's such a sweet lady. We'll chat with her, and she comes from the heart. But when you don't feel good, you're not going to want to be happy all day long, right?
Right, and I think there's twofold to that, because I think, I'm sure mine has the chemical stuff as well, the way we were, but I know unequivocally, I've done a lot, Jason, of trauma work. I'm really,
Yes.
like anyone listening, I'm very experienced with trauma therapy, and mine, I know unequivocally when I did all my trauma recovery that mine stemmed from my mom would sleep around, and cheated on my dad. And she had a big tray, glass tray on her dresser filled with about 30 bottles of different high quality colognes, the Chanel. And she would spray that on, and we were lockheed children too. And she'd spray that on, and that would represent she was going out for the night. And
You're connecting that as a pain trauma point.
And we would be left alone scared. So the minute someone walks in the room with cologne on, my trauma memories go right back there, and I start getting a rage attack, like angry. I want to just beat someone up.
Yes, you're triggering. In chiropractic school, they talk about this. They talk about the cell holds on to a memory. They call it an engram, right? In chiropractic school, you're literally triggering that thing. That's what you're going through. And it can be, a lot of people, I deal with people on a daily basis that come in that have that same trait. It could be on many different things, but you're 100% right. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I'm glad that you're able to understand that, because that makes it a lot, at least easier to deal with. For the average person has no clue. They just don't know why they kind of like flip off a handle or have a problem or whatever it may be.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we're coming to the end of the hour, and I've shown your website. So definitely, you guys, this amazing man can do telehealth with you. And you want to start this 2023, or we're going into March now, and get going here on your health. Really, really focus in on health. I personally, Jason, don't like the word clean, and I'll tell you why. I don't like the word clean because I'm a recovered eating disorder patient. And so for the eating disorder population, we live in a whole different community of wellness than people who don't have eating disorders. So for me personally, I like the word nutritional foods that might give you more nutritional value, because in treatment they taught us, even though I know it's very contrary, they taught us to be able to survive, that all food is good eaten in balance, that you eat it in balance, so that you don't go into that mentality of deprivation, which can trigger the anorexic or the restrictive avoidance disordered patient to believe that if they put food in their mouth, they're going to get sick, because they get to a place where they're so afraid of food. So we stayed away from the word clean eating to stay in balance. Even though now I'm recovered, I can now understand the importance of getting rid of the processed food from my body.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you're first starting out, if you can get a person with anorexic to eat anything, it's better than starving.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way. Sometimes you have to get to that level, because they get so afraid they won't even. I mean, I had girls that would take, let's say, a slice of pizza and sit there for 30 minutes with a paper towel, patting every single piece of grease off of it before they would take even one little bite, because they were so afraid they might get a little bit of fat in their body.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a different world. I don't know a lot about that world, but I can respect it. Obviously, people have disease. I've seen different from other angles.
Yeah, so I'm very cautious of that, because I led Eating Disorders Anonymous meetings for years. So I'm very, I think it's so important to understand the languages. I literally,
Sure.
And let's just talk on that for a minute before we leave, because I literally went to a holistic doctor one time that spent 35 minutes talking about all the foods I should eat. After 20 minutes, and I wasn't that close into recovery, I burst out crying and just said, I can't be here anymore. I just can't be here anymore, because she gave me so many things that I couldn't eat, and then told me what I could, that I was totally overwhelmed and couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, it's an overwhelm. It's also data overload too. I mean, and especially if you sit there and tell somebody what they can't do all day. We try to tell people, okay, first of all, what can you do? Like, well, how can you be at, like, let's say, over it versus like under it, if that makes sense. And then instead of like focusing on not able to do a bunch of stuff, okay, what are the things that we can do right today, right? And then, hey, this goes back to my mom's stuff. Like, it doesn't mean you're gonna be perfect every day. If you fall off a little bit, okay, great. Just obviously recognize you fell off, jump back on the next day or jump back on that day, and then step by step. I think people, when you're putting in the work, because we're unfortunately a lot of times in immediate society, we want things kind of overnight, and all of us are kind of like that to an extent, depending on what it is, what topic. But doing the work every single day, just little by little, getting the next day done. Next thing you know, you got a year under your belt, you got 40 years under your belt, whatever it may be, and you're like, wow, the work got me to this spot where now I'm really solid. You still have to work at it every day, but it's easier and easier every day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on the Connection Show. We're so inspired by Jason's story of hope, health, and healing in his life, and we want that for you as well. So please continue to watch our show, and please reach out to Jason and his amazing wife. Thanks again, Jason, for joining us.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Amari Global is the mental wellness company. In 2018, Amari won the Nutra Award for the world's first award-winning gut-brain axis nutrition system for their flagship product, the Fundamentals Pack, clinically proven to increase good bacteria in the gut and incredible benefits. Amari means love, and there is love in every bottle. Mental health matters, and Amari is the mental wellness company. Prepare your body's gut microbiome for optimized mental wellness with a reboot and get yourself back to feeling joyful and motivated with mood. Round out your daily nutrition with GBX food systems. Crush your daily to-do list each day with Edge. Support your digestion and immune system with digestive, probiotics, omega, and Vita GBX supplements. Fuel your mental edge with our Mental Fitness Pack. Feel like your best self with the Happy Hormone Pack. Unlock your brain's potential with happy neurons with the Happy Mind Pack. And combine these products for an ultimate day with the Happy Juice Pack. For weight loss and energy, order the Transformational Pack. Our Kids Pack is the first comprehensive mental wellness pack for kids and teens. For a complete mind and body nutrition system, get your kids these today. Begin your wellness journey with Amari's Starter Pack and save. Start with the Entrepreneur Pack if you're serious about making an impact on your mental, physical, and financial wellness. Launch your Amari business with all our top products, packs, offers, and save. Help others achieve overall wellness too and gain financial wellness. Become a mental wellness partner today. Shop now and save. Sign up today by going to our website listed on this page. Thank you for joining us on The Connection Show. We'd appreciate your support. Please go to either our Patreon or our PayPal page to support our show. We love our podcast guests and social media subscribers, so you don't miss any of our shows. Go to our website today at BraveHeartWorkshops.com and our Contact Us page. Click on all our social media links and subscribe to and like all our pages. Our affiliate partners, thank you for your support. Go to our affiliate partners page on our website and order from them today. They're offering discounts when you mention Braveheart. Click on their website links to order from them today.